Welcome. This is the Distraction Pieces podcast, episode 237, and it's a Halloween two-part special with a hell of a guest. You will already know who it is. I've been holding off. My Patreon crew will know who it is already because I told them a few weeks back. But yeah, I'm joined this week at long last by the one and only Liam Howlett for an incredibly rare, personal and in-depth two-part conversation. So yeah, I'm delighted that this one's come about. I mentioned Patreon there. I almost said who I'm collaborating with. Me and someone are releasing something today. I'm not going to tell you about it just yet because I promised the Patreon lot I'd give them a head start. So there's a good chance it'll sell out before anyone other than the Patreon lot know about it. So I'm giving you a warning there, but if you want to head over to patreon.com/Scroobius Pip, it's less than £1 to join that gang and to get the heads up on these things. There's some other merch coming out soon in the winter that I'll give you a head start on as well. It's less limited, but yeah, I'm just saying, today of all days, you might want to head over. Oh man, that seems harsh actually, because if you subscribe today, then I think you'll get charged again tomorrow because it's the first of the month. So yeah, that's confusing. But still, it's less than £1 a month. So if you enjoy these podcasts, less than £1 a month seems reasonable. Anyway, I'll stop rambling on about that. It's very exciting. But I will talk about last week's podcast, which went down an absolute treat. I've had some great ones recently. Sage Francis and B. Dolan were on last week. And I'll talk about B. Dolan, I think, in this episode at some point. Yeah, really pleased with the reaction there. People seemed hype for me to have them back on. They're obviously part of Speech Development Records, so if you head to speechdevelopmentrecords.com, you can buy their album, you can buy my merch, or you can buy Distraction Pieces merch, and so on and so forth. But yeah, sitting down with Liam, it was an absolute treat. If this is your first time tuning in, I know we've got a lot of new listeners because of Spotify. So if it's your first time tuning in on Spotify or on Acast or iTunes, then first of all, welcome. And secondly, yeah, you might want to go and check some of the back catalogue. Goldie feels like he might appeal to Prodigy fans. Roots Maneuver, maybe. Some Kate Tempest. Mike Skinner. We had Mike on. Professor Green, Example, some really good people over the last. I've had Eddie. Oh, I can't speak. I've got a stuttering. If you are new, I've had Eddie Temple Morris on one of the early ones, and towards the end of that, he tells amazing stories of being on tour with the Prodigy. So definitely check that out. But yeah, I won't ramble on too much because this is a two-parter. So enjoy part one. That's up now because you're listening to it. Part 2 will be up at midday. In the next part, I'll mention what the limited edition Halloween surprises. Yeah, because they'll probably have all gone by then. Anyway, this is episode 237 of the Distraction Pieces podcast with the Prodigy's own Liam Howlett. Let's just go. So I always do a backup now because out of the 230 odd I've done, I had one that didn't. Oh, really? The file corrupted and it broke my heart. I managed to go back and re-record it, but I was just heartbroken. I felt like an idiot. I felt like an amateur. Just I was watching it the whole time. It all recorded, and then I had a 3-hour drive afterwards, and I got to the hotel room, and the file was 10 seconds long, and I was like, "What, fuck, mate?" So that was grim. But yeah, I'm here today with Liam Howlett. How you doing, man?
How you doing, man? Yeah, good. Yeah, good spirits.
It's been a long time coming, right?
Yeah.
We've been going back and forth on this for a while. Well, every now and then I'll get an email off you.
Known for a while,
it's been a good few years.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
And every now and then I'll get a nice email if there's an episode that you've particularly enjoyed, and it'll be like, that'll be my point to go,
Yeah.
You're still welcome anytime, man. But again, as we were saying before we started rolling, it's timing, isn't it? You've got a new record and a new tour and all that kind of thing. That's the perfect time to have a proper conversation.
The thing with me is I'm a kind of, I used to be able to sort of multitask and put the mind to doing different things, but I find now if I'm doing a record, that's all I can do. Do you know what I mean? I can't even go out to dinner with my mates. Do you know what I mean? I kind of like literally coming in here in the studio and just sitting here for like sometimes 18, 19 hours a day and loving it. Yeah. You know, and having a sleep on this couch when I need to.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to get it done. And I think that's one of the reasons why this album was done so quick, this one I've just written, you know.
Yeah. It's a great space, man. The art on the walls is amazing.
It's kind of like an extension of my house, I guess.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. All the bits that my wife sort of says, nah, you're not putting that in the house, they end up in here.
It's too dark or moody or grim. You bring it in here, that's perfect. So how's it been this last... I mean, what you were saying there about getting that focus, I think that's a really important thing, and I think it's a thing that's getting overlooked in the music industry a bit now, because we've gone all digital and people are like, you don't need a label anymore. So, well, some artists need to just be the artist. They don't need to be worrying about every detail of a release or the build-up or the timing, all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need other people there to go, well, here you go, let us deal with that and you deal with being...
Yeah, it's kind of like leave me alone and I'll tell you when it's done. I hate there's nothing worse than like any kind of person that's record company based, whether sticking a timeline on something. But I mean, to be honest, all the pressure comes from myself, not really from anyone else. I don't really care about record labels and stuff, do you know what I mean? And I care about myself and the band when it comes to the music, us three, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
And it feels like you're enjoying being back in the cycle as such of touring, recording, because you obviously you've had long periods off from that, and then it feels like you've come back. And often when bands come back, you're like, oh, is it going to be a one-off thing? But it seems like you've all found your role and your stride and gone, right, this is exciting now. I want to. You're playing huge tours and you want to play new music there as well.
It's the train you can't get off, really, but we don't want to. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, every time we kind of we always assess ourselves. Say, are we got something to give? You know, do we enjoy it? Do you know what I mean? And it kind of like all feeds from the music. I mean, from the start, if I've got ideas that I feel strong, then it's kind of like, okay, there's 4 or 5 ideas. We're doing an album now. We're doing an album when we're starting. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the way it's always been, especially with this record, because I said to the guys, to Keith and Maxim, I said, I'm good. I think I'm just going to do EPs, you know, because I like the idea of sort of getting sort of 3 or 4 tracks together, sticking them out, you know, going and doing some gigs, sticking to another EP out, and it feels more like
immediacy of it.
Yeah, exactly, man, and just kind of like more regular. Do you know what I mean? And but then, of course, once I've started in the studio, I've got on a really good buzz, and before long, I'd got 6 ideas down pretty quickly, and then I'm like, I sort of rethought that idea and thought, no, I still am old school. I still like the idea of, you know, stamping the authority of an album on 2018. Do you know what I mean? You can say, Prodigy's 7 albums. It's not many, is it? 7?
No.
It ain't many.
It's not. But again, I mean, and we'll get into it. They've all had such important changes in them and developments along the way that it's exciting. I completely get the idea of EPs, because again, it's something I've thought along the lines of, if I come back to music, well, maybe an EP because it's got that immediacy, but if you're writing an album and having that immediacy, then that's fine. If the album is done quick enough, because everyone, if you slave over an album, by the time it comes out, there's going to be songs that you're not excited about anymore. Yeah, because you're excited about the stuff you've just done, and that's the double-edged sword of it. Yeah,
I must admit, I still quite like the idea of doing EPs in between the albums.
Yeah.
So when you've sort of done your singles or whatever, and you're in that point where you've done the Michael Jackson, you released 10 tracks of singles.
Yeah.
You get to the point where the album's kind of done, and that's a good time to be doing it, because I'm writing all the time. You know, all the time I'm writing beats every day, because I love it still. It's not work to me, you know. I've always done that. If I've got a bit of spare time, that's what I do.
I was going to say, do you get to write on the road much?
Because
tours are the monotony of tours is what kills bands. But if you're at that point where you've got that
control and creativity.
The touring can breed kind of like a certain sort of craziness, I think. Do you know what I mean? And some people can handle it, some people can't. Do you know what I mean? It tends to reduce you to kind of like schoolboy behaviour. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just, you know, sort of just to knock the boredom off and keep yourself entertained. Do you know what I mean? But like,
it's not the real world, is it?
It ain't the real world.
It's a bizarre one, but it's just not the real world. It's
one story saying that one story just came back to my mind. Actually, we were in Japan. This is going back to, well, what year was it? Must have been. It was in the 90s. It was late 90s, maybe 98, 99.
Yeah.
We're in Japan doing Fuji Rock Festival. The festival got rained off, and so all these bands are in this hotel. Us, Green Day, Rage Against the Machine, and we're drinking, you know, we're just like going, well, what the fuck are we going to do, you know?
Yeah.
Can I swear on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good. So the next thing we see is we get a knock on the door, and it's one of the Green Day boys with like, they've gone out and bought these guns, these like ball-bearing guns. So they chuck a couple at us, and then we just spend the rest of the night running around the hotel. And that's the kind of stuff you do, you know, just to kind of alleviate the boredom, really. But obviously we live for that hour and 20 minutes, whatever it is. We try and get it like more like the Ramones, more like 50 minutes, because it has more impact.
Yeah.
But no, you know, you live for that moment on stage where you can play the tunes. That's what the Prodigy are built for.
Yeah, and the rest of it is filling time until you get there.
Like I said, I'm not a sightseer. I'm more of a nighttime person. I prefer just to kind of I don't really go outside during the daytime much, you know. I'm usually just travelling, really, if we're doing gigs, you know, but I'm not one to kind of, I've seen everything before. I'm not bothered about going to the Leaning Tower of Pisa and shit like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You've done that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's all about that moment on stage. Other than that, it's hotel rooms.
Yeah, which can be fucking boring, but like, it's part of the job. But hey, that's what we love, you know. I mean, the Prodigy couldn't exist if it wasn't for the live side, you know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was thinking, like, I'd still write music, but being able to play that music on stage influences what that is. You know? And sort of, I guess, you know, I'm not an angry person. I would say I'm sort of got some kind of gripe going on.
Yeah.
But just, I like tension in music. And it kind of, I think the stage is where it sort of manifests itself, really. Do you know what I mean?
Was that always in your music taste when you were growing up and that? Like, what was the music you grew up with? Because there is, I think the thing that I connected with is there always felt like a punk influence and a hip hop influence, and that was the two genres that I grew up in love with. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm too young to have sort of bumped right into the sort of the 70s punk rock.
Yeah,
I was more two-tone. You know, this was going when I first got into music when I was really young. You know, the two-tone thing was the thing I got into, and I think it was literally like my dad bought me a alarm clock radio, must have just picked up the first cassette he saw.
Yeah.
It happened to be Dance Crazed. It was a two-tone live album.
Right.
Basically, just got into that, and I just loved the specials, you know, and just remember just looking at the album cover and just thinking, yeah, man, I want to be in that gang, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just like the fact that it was sort of multiracial as well.
Yeah,
in a way, do you know what I mean?
Completely.
It was just really exciting and different, you know, and I think from pretty young age, I kind of knew I wasn't into pop music. I could tell, you know.
Yeah.
I was into music that had a kind of force behind it. Do you know what I mean?
I get you.
A bit of bollocks, you know.
Yeah, I love that. So how was that out in small town Essex? Because there's not going to be a burgeoning music scene. Also, growing up in Essex, I know in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't that multiracial either.
That's
Do
right.
you know what I mean? So that must have been a positive example to have that kind of tape to go, oh, right, this is a mixture. This isn't the white land that I live in.
And of course, like when the two-tone when the two-tone thing exploded, it was about the fashion, you know, and you know, about the style, about the fashion, about the music, and you know, obviously as a kid, you know, you bump into these things. You know, these bands performed on top of the pops, so you could see like the beat, the selector, and so it was, you're kind of drawn in by the style of it all and kind of the way they are. They're cool, you know. Yeah. And so, you know, at school, and I'm sure there's thousands of people that were trying to bend the rules, but like, you know, you'd see how far you can take the piss and go in with the Stay Press and the Fred Perry with a tie on, you know, and try and bend the rules to kind of do that. So that was kind of the first thing. And then when that sort of tapered off, sort of electro appeared, and I just I think when I heard Grandmaster Flash and the Wheels of Steel, that first tune, my friend was a DJ. He was just a sort of mobile DJ, and he played sort of jazz funk and Brothers Johnson and stuff like that. And then Grandmaster Flash released that tune, and it was like I just thought, he's made that out of other people's tunes.
Yeah,
cutting them up on the turntables. I could do that. Yeah. I just like then I started doing the pause button sort of stuff.
Mate, I've got a weird story about that. There's a guy at my club night who he's the best DJ I've had. He's a DMC champ. His name's DJ Destruction.
Yeah.
And he was on Mike Allen's LBC in a pause button mix contest against you. And he reckons that you came first and second and he came third. He reckons that you were under two different names, but he was definitely, he was just second. Behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, I came first. Oh, this is what happened. I borrowed my mate, this is the DJ guy, I borrowed his 4-track recorder, and I don't know why he had it, but I thought, well, I'm going to put it to use. I took it for a few days and just put together this little mix, and Mike Allen was it Capital? Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Capital Rap Show. He was having I think CJ McIntosh was going to be the judge of it. He was the DJ. He was the judge of the thing. And basically, it was like the 3-minute mix. And I entered one mix under DJ Fame or something. And then I kind of thought, I don't know if I was really happy with that. And then so I entered another one under a different name, DJ ED. And come first and third. So
amazing. So he came second place in there. So how was that though, to get that kind of, to have radio allowing you that outlet, I guess? Because again, I do believe in these small town Essex type things. You need those things that allow you to go, oh, this could be a thing.
Yeah.
This is possible. It's not just...
Yeah, man. I mean, that was the first thing that happened to me, and this is all from a bedroom, and I was young still. I was like, how old was I? I must have been 15. I was still at school, I know that. Yeah, it was exciting, and I didn't really think much more of it, but I mean, Mike Allen still owes me a pair of Adidas trainers that never turned up.
I love that. So
I think he died, unfortunately. I think he passed away, actually.
Well, you have to inquire with the estate on these old trainers. But so, what was the journey from pause button of mixes in your bedroom to essentially putting a rocket under the rave scene with Charlie and
man,
the explode, and with XL, and obviously I've had Nick Hawkes on the podcast, and I had Richard Russell produce a track on my solo record. So XL are just an amazing thing, but it kind of, they stumbled upon some gold there, an exciting moment, an explosion.
They certainly didn't stumble on it. I stumbled into their office and forced it on them. Basically, I've kind of, this is what happened. I was into hip hop, and after going out a few times in London, lots of times, and just not really feeling it, and it was kind of a quite sort of a volatile sort of stage, and it was kind of like, I think Westwood, we were following Westwood around, and he did a gig in it might have been Lowestoft, I can't remember the exact thing, and after his set, it turned into like an acid house party,
right?
And I just stood there on the balcony, and my mates were like, we're going to go, and I just thought, what is this? I'm seeing something I've never seen before. It was like everyone's sort of communicating to each other on the dance floor, and it's gone from a kind of like a moodiness that was kind of always pretty heavy in the hip hop jams, and Essex was heavy, without a doubt. I mean, we'd spent all our youth all over Essex and into East London, and it was heavy, But then I saw I just heard sort of like these DJs were mixing kind of like the beats with this kind of new type of music, I'd never heard before. It's kind of acid house music, but it was the feel I got from it. It was I guess it was going back to the sound system culture. It was the bass, and I was, from that moment, I was hooked. So I spent all 1990 basically just writing and going out, and I think I went to XL with a demo tape. I phoned Nick up and said, I've got a demo, post it. No, I'm coming down. So I just drove down there.
Amazing.
Car full of the lads, and drove down there, and basically, said, bosh, there it is, listened to it, and I sat there, listened to it, and then I forgot about it, went back home. I was working as a junior artist in a design studio, payphone on the wall, and it rang 2 weeks later, and it was Nick saying, yeah, we want to offer you a deal. So basically that was how the whole thing started. So that at that point I was going out with Keith and Leroy. We were raving. We were just going out to the raves. All
That's
the
it. I was going to say, what was the Prodigy at that point?
Not at that point, nothing, because we were just friends. Yeah. And then we'd sort of go out every Friday to this place called the Essex Barn, and all the big DJs came through there. Frankie Bones, Lenny D, Mr. C was there every week. I mean, it was at one point it was one of the top clubs in the country. It was a great place, and it also had like Adamski played there live. All the sort of big, I guess you could call them PAs, really.
Yeah.
Enjoy. We were sitting there, and I was friends with Keith, and I think he'd heard some of my demos and stuff, and he was like, I think it was Leroy's idea to get the band together. Yeah. He just said, we could do better than that. Why don't we do it? And I was like, yeah, let's do it.
I love the motivation of live gigs like that. Again, I remember it was a weird one for me. In the same week, I saw the Beastie Boys when they had their circular stage. I think it was at Wembley. And I saw the Bloodhound Gang. And both of them, again, at no point was I saying I can do better than that. But I was like, it looked achievable. It was the first thing I'd been to, because growing up in punk and that, and I played a bit of guitar, but I wasn't very good and all that. Every band, it kind of felt, oh no, that's beyond me. And again, like working class Essex, you need all this equipment, you need this and that. They were the first ones I saw, and I was like, that like we could, like, with the greatest respect in the world, we could do something like that at the very least. And that's a huge motivation.
In that way, it's really DIY, and that's what drew me towards it. I was the same as you. There was no access into music with a guitar. So you've got to learn to play guitar for so many years, and I was lazy, I just kind of like, I like the immediacy of like just this kind of making something out of nothing, looping a beat. Do you know what I mean? That was my entry point into that. And so the kind of rave, the East London breakbeat rave, that raw pirate radio sound, that's the shit I honed in on. That's the stuff I really loved. And Shut Up and Dance were the first people that started that whole movement. Do you know what I mean? I've got to send respect to them guys, There was lots of early records that were knocking about. DJ Hype was on the scene, and all these dudes were kind of making this music that kind of connected the dots between what I was doing before and the early rave stuff. So that was the first gig we played, was in Four Aces in Hackney, real sort of underground, run-down old theatre. I think it was an old reggae venue from the 80s. They used to put sound systems in there and stuff. Yeah. And then Friday night it turned into like this kind of this madhouse, just strobes and kind of just full on,
just mayhim.
We played that was the first gig, and then the guy Joe, he asked us back to play the Saturday. So then we're off. We haven't stopped since, literally.
It's amazing. I mean, immediacy seemed like a key word there, because it was as soon as this started, it seemed to go absolutely mental. And I remember I used to take the chart shows off the radio and listen to it on my Walkman as I was doing my paper round. I delivered the Yellow Advertiser, and I remember clearly the excitement of hearing everybody in the place in the charts. And I believe it got to number 2, and it was only because Freddie Mercury had just died, and they re-released Bohemian Rhapsody that kept off the number 1 spot. But it was that time that it seemed all of a sudden there was music that I'd never heard on chart shows before. I wouldn't have had access to as a younger kid. I'm a few years younger than you. As that young kid, I didn't have an option of going and finding this stuff. So, whilst the charts aren't the be all and end all, in those days, it was a fucking powerful a vessel for getting the music out there to people who wouldn't have been able to find it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the fans that put it there. They brought the records. I mean, we furiously declined everything, because we were ravers. Being in the charts is the last thing we want to do. We were underground. Do you know what I mean? We want to stay connected to that. So
it's the punk rock outlook, isn't it? It almost discredits you to do well. It's a bizarre one.
It is weird. A lot of bands do struggle with that. I mean, you try and just stick to your guns, and as long as you can have some kind of integrity, keep that intact. It's like that's basically the way it's got to be, But we rolled on with that, and it was great that people supported us. But the sort of chart positions and stuff were great, but we weren't really basing everything on that. We were like happy we were playing at the parties we were going to, like Rain Dance. We'd go there. That was East London, and we were like, wow, if we could play this, we would have made it. You know, what I mean? And then all of a sudden we were there, Berwick Manor. You know, we played that. You know, all these great places, and so I think culturally it's really important. The rave culture, you know, it's really significant. I think, you know.
So how was it? Because again, the rave culture isn't necessarily a culture that was known at the time for albums, and you guys put an album together, and it was again. I remember my older brother getting Experience and Outer Space and Jericho and Rough in the Jungles. So not only the singles, it felt like an album. It felt like a body of work and a sound.
Well,
so how was that?
Well, I didn't want to do an album, and Nick, who put XL together, he kept saying, "We should do an album, and you know, we didn't want to do an album because it's...
You wanted to party.
Yeah, well, we wanted to release, you know, DJ 12s. It was all about the 12s, you know, and it's kind of like almost releasing an album is kind of making us more normal, do you know what I mean? I rebelled against it for ages, and then we kindly thought, okay, you know, maybe it would be good to do, and then... But one thing I wasn't going to do is just put all the singles on. I think I remixed every track, you know. So when Charlie was on there, it was a different version, you know. And so all the singles were different versions. They were just all new mixes, you know. Yeah. So I felt it was a bit cheap to kind of give people stuff they've already heard.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Here's this, but all in one place. Yeah. So, all right, cheers, I got that.
Yeah.
At what point? This is a unique conversation to us, because the last time I saw you was our mutual... It's probably how we met, I guess, originally, was through Dave Clark, who was your accountant, and his son, Matt, is my accountant, and Dave, both of them were involved with you guys for so long. Yeah. And at the funeral of Dave, it was kind of said how he kind of... An accountant, it sounds like a small thing. It sounds like the guy who's just putting the numbers together, but it did feel like he had a greater impact that he kind of came to you guys and helped you become a business as such, like what you went on to be, rather than just some kids who were there to have some fun and make some music.
Dave was more, he was a great friend of ours, you know, and basically, like, none of us really knew what we were doing. No. You know, and I think Dave obviously was the person that probably knew the most what he was doing. Yeah. But we've always had, like, a great team around us, and, you know, my manager, Mike, you know, he's with a combination of Mike, Dave, and you know, the people around us have had the same ethic as we did, you know, this kind of fuck you, you know, we're doing it this way. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not really a record company guy, so I've been in meetings with Dave where he's stood up for me. And it's great to have someone that speaks the same language you, whatever the job is. If they're on your side and they're speaking the same language, they've got your back. Yeah. That means a lot to me.
And that's absolutely key when the people on the business side of it are as fuck you as you are. If they're like, what, that's not what you want. It might be good business, it might be good money, but that's not the Prodigy. That's not Liam, that's not Keith, that's, you know, so we'll back you on that. It never felt as if there was... It seems that you picked a team really well, that they weren't necessarily ever going, I know you don't want to do this, but you probably should. It's like, no, we'll do it how we do it.
Yeah, I mean, all the business stuff really was just taken care of, you know. I mean, we never really... There wasn't really really a plan as such, you know. I mean, it's kind of like, oh, well, I've got to pay tax, have I? Yeah. Well, when? Well, no, you owe a load of money now, okay. You know, so it's like, it was a bit like that. You know, none of us really... I mean, I was working as like that office junior, I said, you know. Yeah. I think Keith was travelling around, Leroy was doing a bit of work here and there. And so it was the first proper job we've had. First regular income doing the band. And it wasn't really... It's not a job, you know. I mean, it's kind of like... It never once has felt like a job to me, you know, being in this band. Yeah. You know, it shouldn't ever, you know.
I love that.
So it's kind of like... Yeah, when you talk about the business side, I've never really thought about it like that. Yeah, I just thought Dave is my friend.
Yeah. And he's looking after.
Yeah, and he's great. You know, and that's the kind of people you want around you.
It's key, man, because again, Matt has been the exact same for me, and just he's meant I've not got in trouble numerous times because I don't think about any of that shit. I don't know about what tax. I just know that he'll make sure the money's there to pay the tax man, and it'll all be legit and it'll all be fine. Otherwise, I'd get in trouble through ignorance rather than through being dodgy or snidey or anything else.
When you've got three lunatics in the band, you don't want your accountants off their tits, do you? You know, you need them to be on the ball. So you know, I think we chose the right people there, and
So because of the time of it and because of it experience and all that being so out there, but then instantly seeming to connect. A lot of people must have thought it was a flash in the pan, that this is some kids just playing some music and it'll be gone as quickly as it came.
Yeah.
So how did it feel then to come out with Jilted and, again, it be a respected artistically, you know, Mercury nominated, all this kind of thing? This, again, another complete album and an evolution of the sound as well.
Yeah. Everything in the band has always happened naturally. We've always gone with our gut feeling, always tried to stick to what we all believe, you know. And I think what happened was, I was on stage at some rave in Scotland, and I just thought, I'm not into this anymore. This isn't doing it for me. This isn't what it was, you know. And I don't know what this is, but it ain't me. Do you know what I mean? It lost its kind of ferocious kind of raw energy, you know. It just was a bit Toy Town. Do you know what I mean? So I just thought, I've had enough now. And
so important to have that honesty with yourself, because again, if things are going well, it's easy to go, they're going well. Even if it's dying a bit for you, you can go, they're going well.
Yeah, I know, man. That's
Here's
true.
what they want. I can make
true.
more of this, you know.
But because it's such a big part of your life, you kind of think, you know, is it a matter of stopping this band and starting a new one or what? But basically, what happened next was we went to LA. I think we were doing probably the last video of Experience, which must have been Wind It Up, I think it was. And Rage Against the Machine's first album come out.
Yeah.
And I remember we bought that, and I think The Chronic was out as well at the same time. And we just played that solid for a week while we were there. And I came back just like, I think as well going to that trip to LA, you know, we did a lot of stuff that week, you know, just saw a lot of stuff. And it just really opened my eyes. And I think it was just a moment in time when I just flipped. Do you know what I mean? The mind had just opened to something else, you know.
Yeah.
And I saw another way forward for us. And the rave scene had kind of like practically gone, you know, and you got this criminal justice bill thing happening.
Yeah, of course.
And that kind of spurred on a kind of certain energy to write these new songs.
Yeah.
And I mean, I see it as a smooth transition. Some other people will look at the first and second album as kind of like completely different.
Yeah.
But when I look back now, I can kind of see its transition. Maybe it's because I was inside it.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Yeah, I remember every track on that album was kind of rebelling against something.
Yeah.
You know, it would be like, you know, Poison. Everyone was trying to write faster music. You know, the drum and bass, the jungle music was getting ridiculous. It was touching 180 BPM and stuff like that. And so I thought, right, just let's bring the hip hop back. And so that track was I was really proud of that track when we did that. And as well, that was Maxim's first time he got on the mic and laid the vocals down.
Yeah, of course.
So that instantly felt like, right, we've got something that's a bit different here now.
Yeah.
We can keep what we had before, but we can retain that, but we can do this. And what we actually did, we went back to playing rock and roll venues. We played the Marquee, we went to unis and just started from ground 0 on the live side again.
Yeah.
You know? And people just came to see us. And
again, it's beautiful there. You've got on the wall there, fuck this and fuck that, you know, a Johnny Rotten at his best. Yeah. And the thing that was key about the punk era at that time was that it wasn't just about let's get our anger out by playing as fast as possible. Every time I put on a Pistols album or Clash, half their stuff, it's slower than I remember it. Yeah, it's slower than I remember it. Exactly that. It's that controlled anger. Yeah. And that's an important thing there, that the rave scene was at a point where it was like, right, we need to just go faster. We need to go faster. And someone turned around and went, no, we need to go harder. It's not about faster, it's about going harder. And that's what you guys did. You kind of came out. And it was at that point as well that whilst you'd done videos previously, it felt with Jilted, you started to find your look and your style and the direction that you were going to go with that. No Good being just this beast of a video, just dark and grimy and exciting.
I would say we were talking about the two-tone culture earlier, which, you know, the style of that and how smart people used to look. Obviously, that was really connected to fashion and style. There wasn't particularly any fashion and style connected to the rave era as such, do you know what I mean? Or any particular style as such. So obviously, like at that time, we just rolled around in baggy tracksuit bottoms and weren't. But when the second album, you know, because I think it is important how you look. You know, any band wants to try and look something.
Yeah.
It's really important. I don't understand bands who can't be bothered with album sleeves or artwork, and they're not into the whole thing of it. I think it's all important. Do you know what I mean?
It's all part of that initial impact. I always remember chatting with Sage Francis and B. Dolan when they were over, and they were saying that a few guys on Strange Famous on their label in America, they'd kind of taken aside and said, your live performance is great, but you're walking on stage wrong. And that sounds really small and stupid, but that's a massive part of it. That first view of you, that first impact is a huge thing. So if you're just kind of slumping out there, it's like, no, you need to be, you need to know how the show's starting, because it is all of that. And equally, an album cover can set the tone for how you hear that record.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at it and like, oh, this feels exciting or it feels dangerous, then you've started the job there, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I mean, moving forwards quickly to when I wrote Invaders album, which was 3 albums back now.
Yeah.
We had the cover really early on.
Yeah.
And I just put that on the wall, and just that image of that sort of airship thing was like some kind of spaceship landing. I don't know, it helped with the music, just to be able to look at that image and kind of soundtrack it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, completely.
And so, I know what you're saying with that. I mean, with Jilted, it was it's not one of my favourite covers. I kind of look back at it now and I go, no, I guess you're always a bit kind of. It's easy to sort of look back and stuff and pick it apart.
Completely. But I do it all the time. I posted all our album covers the other day, and our second album, I was like, I loved it at the time, but it does nothing for me now. It's got everything else. It tells me something about that time. That one, it felt like we've gone, oh, we're a professional band now. We need to have a professional looking album cover.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah. No, I know.
So how was it? I mean, you spoke about the kind of the transition and the build, and you feeling it was a natural transition rather than anything jarring.
Absolutely.
Going on to the next album, you started to build a band, and you started to build a live band and all that kind of thing.
That kind of started at Jilted, really, because I recorded some guitars and was experimenting with bringing those into the set and kind of type of thing. And so, first of all, we had the guitarist. We wasn't sure whether we liked it or not, do you know what I mean? But we eventually liked it when we got it right. I think it's a hard thing to get right at the beginning. But
I went to my mate's band, Serious Problem, and grabbed their guitarist at some point for some level of time. And I remember it being all the hype around our area of like, it's going to join the Prodigy. Like this is this huge thing. I don't know. I know Stu Whiffen, who was the front man of Serious Problem,
Richard,
but no, I think it is Richard.
Yeah, he was a good guy. Yeah, we tried loads of people out.
In Serious Problem, he dressed up as like a priest or some shit, and it was just had this like this over the top look. But
great. Yeah.
But how was that to kind of?
You got his number.
Like how was that to put things together and to move things about and go? Because again, it's one thing starting a band when there's no eyes on you. I was talking about this to a mate of mine, Polar Bear, the other day. I was saying if I ever come back to playing live, it'll take a lot of practice because I felt I got good, and generally you get to be shit at the period when no one's looking at you. Like when you've got audiences of 4 or 5 people, that's when you get to be shit. By the time you've got thousands, you've been doing it a long time, you've got really fucking good.
Yeah.
How was that? Because you're having to put that together when you've already got eyes on you and you don't know how it's going to be yet. You've not added a drummer or a guitarist or whatever else.
Well, we added... The way we did the drums was we always knew we weren't going to use the drummer as a normal band uses a drummer.
Yeah.
Because the power of the music and the foundation in the music is the drums and the bass from the Prodigy, That has to come from me.
Yeah.
So the way we'd integrated the drummer into the set, I mean, this might sound a bit boring, but like basically, we'd EQ the bottom out of the drum kit, so you get the high end excitement in the snare.
Right.
So all the bottom end comes from me, the bass.
That's perfect.
And we just found a pocket where it just works, and gave it a live feel. So when he's playing to the click and the drum machine, it kind of just adds the extra thing on top. And we've experimented lots of ways to play this music live, and I think we all agree we finally found the perfect way to do it in around it might sound crazy, in around 2005.
Right.
It was that far in.
Yeah.
'Cause I think the technology wasn't there for us to be able to
That
be able
makes sense.
to be able to just change things up really quick and
Yeah.
just go to like, because electronic music can be quite limiting. Machines always break down, and do you know what I mean? It's kind of like we went through a stage of doing gigs where every gig something broke down, and we ended up having to sell all the equipment and just get new stuff. I don't know what happened there.
And for live as well, because starting off electronic, it's not about the people who are playing it. It's about the room. It's about everyone you're vibing off there. And then you suddenly start to become this band, particularly more Fat of the Land era, where it felt like it was now. But you've had Firestarter and you've had Keith explode into Keith, you know. So it is now. It's not. You can't be that kind of, we'll just play and you dance. It's like no,
man, no. It was natural. It was a natural progression into that, and also I think people would like to sort of put you in pigeonholes. They like to be able to know what you're. So what are you? What you're a band? Are you? If people thought of us somewhere in between, sort of what Public Enemy do, like as in the way their setup is with, it's halfway in between that and a guitar band.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of that
completely.
kind of philosophy, because that's where I come from,
Yeah.
So, but going back to Keith, I mean, sometimes the band is led by me, like in my actions and songs and stuff. And, Poison was led by Maxim. He went, I'm doing vocals on this track. So it was him that pushed at that particular moment. And I probably haven't talked about this much, actually, but it was Keith that made the whole Firestarter thing happen.
Yeah.
I backed him up.
Yeah.
He had the foresight, and he said, the guy with long hair, he's gone. I'm the same guy, but now I can really express myself because now I've got a mic.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm with you, brother, whatever you want to do, And we didn't know what was going to happen. I wrote Firestarter as an instrumental on first track. I just thought it was going to be the first track on Fat of the Land, instrumental. Comes in the studio, and he goes, I'm gonna write a description about myself. I was like, let's do it. And we'd written it in half an hour, but there was many more lyrics on the demo, and then sort of I'd listen to it over and over again the next couple of days, and stripped them all out, got the right amount of vocals and stuff. And then I remember going to the strong rooms because we were going to record the music and the vocals all again in the big studio. And we got to the studio, and they just couldn't get the music sounding like I had it.
Right.
Because I really, by that time I was really into production. And I really, mastered the sound,
Yeah.
And they, whoever was doing it, we were like, let's use the demo.
Amazing.
And
I love that.
The demo is what's out there, and the vocals were recorded, and we tried Keith in a vocal booth, and that was shit. So we ended up SM58 next to the mixing desk, screaming into the mic, and that's how it happened.
That's beautiful.
It's great, man. I love the fact that it naturally stripped itself back down to nothing. Again, we'd spent $2,000 in this studio, but it naturally came back down to a £50 mic.
I love that. I did
on a lead,
on my first ever record on no commercial breaks. It was the first time I got to be in a real studio and all that, and I could only afford 3 days.
Yeah.
So we recorded it all in 3 days, and it was exactly the same. There was one track there that it didn't have the rawness of the demo that I'd recorded in my mum's bedroom with mattresses up and a towel over the top and all this, and I ended up just going back to that because I was like, at points or on good speakers, it's almost unlistenable because it's such low quality. But it's like that. It's got that energy, right? It's got it there.
It's got like a cassette quality.
About it. Exactly.
I love that. I mean that was Firestarter, and I remember driving home from Strong Room back to Essex, and me and Keith, and just the feeling of two best mates creating something. You just know can't be touched. Do you know what I mean? We didn't give a fuck whether it was going to be single or whatever it was going to be. We didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
All we knew was put it on again. Put it on again. Oh man, we just nailed it, and that's a great feeling to have because
amazing.
Writing music, that's the feeling I look for myself when I'm writing music in the studio. Anyway, but have that with I had it with Maxim when we did Poison, and then to have it with Keith again with that, like that. So that was great, a great feeling.
That's it. I was going to say, like, how is that when you've been the leader and your mates are stepping up for the first time and you're supporting them, but then they fucking knock it out the park? Like, how rewarding is that? Because again, there must be a level of, well, you know, I'll back you, but it may or may not work. Like you don't know until that point. But Poison is a prime example of that. That he just stepped up and made a stone cold classic.
We never doubted ourselves ever because we knew it would work. You know, because it's like we write the rules. Do you know what I mean? It's like I remember the first time we played it on stage, and it wasn't the first time, but I remember playing it at Brixton probably within the first 3 or 4 gigs.
Yeah,
and I remember. You know, literally, I remember Keith thinking, fuck, what are the lyrics? I can't remember the lyrics. You know, because his mind had just gone into what the fuck at that point.
Yeah.
Right, I'm fucking going to do it. And the track finished, and it was like deadly silence. It was like, and then, you know, just, and then I just thought, yeah, man, this track's got this. It's got the fire. Do you know what I mean? Live, if it works live, then you just, because we love the tune.
Yeah, but it's seeing if it's got that energy with the crowd.
People going to accept Keith on the mic. They loved it, and it was kind of like a natural progression that Keith had got that mic, and basically it was just an extension of him, another side of Keith, an extra bit of him, you know.
And seeing that energy translated into the crowd, right? So you're suddenly not just got the rave crowd, you've got people moshing and going nuts. I got kicked out twice of the Prodigy all-nighter at Brixton because I got kicked out for going too mental for crowd surfing too much. And then I broke back in.
Yeah.
I went back to the door and I said, I've got my ticket for my coat. And they're like, well, you've been kicked out. I was like, look, it's just up there. And I walked in, and the way Brixton is, the cloakroom's up the big stairs. Yeah. I put one foot on the step. I looked round at them and then just ran through the big doors and back into the crowd. And then later on, I was like, good. Out there again about 10 minutes later because it had that energy. I don't know. I've no idea on that. I've got a few I've noted on. Yeah. I want to talk about, I was at V97 and I was at Reading 98, and both of them were huge. But
Brixton is a academy, is a sort of spiritual home, if you like.
Yeah.
You know? I think the guy told us we played it the most times out of any band, which we were proud of. It might mean anything to anyone else, but we like that. You know, it's like, oh, really? Well, that's a nice sort of statistic in the book. No, but so that kind of really opened everything up. But I think we saw a change in the crowd from when we did Jilted, because when we did that album, the second album, we had the opportunity, and again, going back to like the people you work with, we've got this great few people that are like-minded as us, you know, taking risks. Where can we play? You know, what kind of countries can we play in? And we basically ended up doing a rock festival. And you've got to remember, at that time, the electronic music was so far away from like a rock band. It was
100%.
Howlett, Suicidal Tendencies, Biohazard.
And that was an era where you didn't cross over either. No. It was, you loved metal, you hated electronic.
Absolutely.
It was rivalry.
Metal, they don't like anything else usually.
Yeah.
And this was in it was Howlett Festival, I believe. And we went on stage and it was hardcore, but we played it, and afterwards we felt like we got respect.
Yeah.
And I stayed friends with Evan from Biohazard from that day.
Yeah.
He's a good fellow, and basically like we just thought, this is. We're going to do this. We're going to do it this way. So again, it was just always a natural progression. It wasn't ever we just landed with Firestarter and what the fuck can we do? It's number one. What are we doing? It was a gradual build all the time. It was constantly building. When you're in it, you don't really get chance to kind of analyse it and pat yourself on the back, or we're just constantly working all the time. You know, I wasn't home much.
And that's it. I mean, I think you do. You write your own story in a lot of these things. I remember I was on tour, the first time I was touring my solo stuff with my live band, and I had a track with Travis Barker and Danny Lonna from 9 Inch Nails, all this kind of thing. And it was the first time that we were doing that live, and the first night of the tour was in Hull, and it was in like an arts centre, and there was a power cut, and everything, it was still cool. I did some spoken word, all that, but it was still cool, but it went wrong. And I came off stage, and B. Dolan, who was supporting us, had tweeted saying, that's the first time I've seen a mosh pit at a hip-hop gig. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, we've got the rest of the tour to do. The next night, mosh pit. Every night of the tour, mosh pit. It hadn't happened in Hull. But again, he wrote that own story. And that's what it felt like with at the No Good Start the Dance video, you had this dark, almost aggressive scene rather than the happy rave scene that you'd seen previously.
Yeah, man.
And that wrote itself. It then meant that everyone was going to these gigs and it was darker and it was grimier and it was...
Those videos, those early videos, you know, the ones that from sort of Jilted onwards they were good. We had a good run of videos. I mean, the thing with videos, I've said it before, is that you do have to put your trust into someone else, you know, making this thing. It's a visual connection and you do your best to, you know, to talk to the director and kind of put the idea, understand what he's doing and try and say, is that right? And put some of yourself in it. But it is the one area that I don't really like, you know, because it's kind of, I guess I am a control freak. I realise that now. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, basically, you have to really take a bit of a leap of faith. And we've been to like 5 videos because I didn't like them.
Oh, really?
And they were expensive videos back then. And it's like, nah. There was the Firestarter video. There was one before.
Because that went off. That was
the second video we made for it.
Oh, really?
Black and white one. And the reason why it's black and white is because we spent all the money on the first one, which was shit.
That's mind-blowing.
I met a director in Europe, like I think it was MTV Awards ceremony or something, and I kind of liked what he did, and so we got him to do the Firestarter video, and he delivered it, and I was like, nah, man, that isn't capturing what Keith we've created.
Yeah.
You know? And so we shelved it, you know, it was like $100,000 or something, and went back to XL and said, listen, forget about that video. I said, we won't have a video.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we need a video. So I basically, I spoke to Walter, who had made the No Good video, Poison, Voodoo People, all those great videos. I rang him up and said, shit, man, I said, I need your help here, you know. I said, we haven't got any money, but, you know, can you help us out and do this video? And it's just the fact that he was so creative. I remember driving to the shoot. It's black and white because we spent all the budget.
Yeah.
And we're on the way. This is typical of us, though, because everything happens spontaneously. Like, Keith's like, whoa, stop the car. Pulled over, ran into a shop, come out with the Stars and Stripes jumper, put it on the way to the video shoot.
You know.
You know, and then,
that's
you know,
mad.
basically you're like, where the fuck are we going? He's like, oh, yeah, we've managed to get into, like, Aldwych tube station, disused station.
Yeah.
Went down there and just, it was just, I mean, that was another good moment because, you know, when you're doing videos, you know, I don't particularly like doing them, but Keith made that video. You know, his energy and his sort of belief in himself, which, like I say, for various parts of the band, all 3 of us have stepped up, which is great, I think, you know.
Yeah, completely. And again, it caused a stir. It had people saying it was scary, that they didn't want it on TV, that it was scaring their kids and stuff like that.
People who just don't know how to express themselves.
That's got to be music to your ears. Are they right? When Wallies are getting fired up over something, you know that's just going to be like, right, we're doing something right. We're doing something that's pushing it.
Yeah, I don't even think you think like that. You just think, yeah, whatever, you know, and you get on with it. You know, I don't remember really having any thought or listening to what other people had to say about it because we were so on what we were doing and sure of the way we were doing it that we never really listened to it. We didn't really listen to the record company, you know. But Richard from XL was always great. You know, I mean, Nick had left XL, I believe, after the first album.
Yeah.
He'd started another label. When Richard took over, you know, me and Rich were really tight. He's a great guy. And what I like about Richard is he takes risks. You know, he was almost like another member of the band. We respected him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he was like, of course we're fucking going to do that. That's what we're going to do, you know. And it's like, without any, just ballsy risks. And like, those are the types of people we like to work with. And, you know, basically, great. It just, that was fat of the land. But the funny thing was, Firestarter came out, I believe, was it 96? I think it was 96, possibly 95, I can't remember actually. But it was a year later that the album came out, so it was a whole year.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, really.
Yeah, it's mad to have this big single and not immediately go, we need to follow it up, quick.
Nothing, though, not even another single. It was literally like Breathe, we were playing Breathe live
Yeah.
And Richard said, I reckon that could be a good single, that, you know. And so, again, we weren't even thinking about it. It was just another track we were playing live. And then eventually, you know, that came out, and then you were into Fat of the Land, and that's when it really fucking went mad.
Yeah.
That was really chaos from there onwards, really. Those, like, that back end of the 90s, it was just like, we didn't stop, man. Do you know what I mean? And we headed into serious burnout. End of 99, rolling into 2000, I think we'd all had enough.
Well, that was it. For me as a fan, I saw you at V97, and again, that was just a field full of people losing their shit. It was really it
was just like an electrical storm happening.
Yeah. It was all just the energy of nature and of the band and of the crowd was just all at one.
We felt as well with that gig. I mean, I've lived in London for years now, but we felt that it was kind of like a homecoming gig. In a way. Do you know what I mean? So we owned it. Yeah. It was like, you know, it was that was a great gig. I won't forget that. You know?
Yeah. So I mean, we spoke just now of ignoring what other people think and what other people say. And one of the other gigs I saw you at was a Reading 98.
Yeah.
And that was where the Beastie Boys had requested that you didn't play Smack My Bitch Up.
Sure.
And Maxim came on the mic like a monster and kind of, you know, it was all expressed that you do what you want kind of thing.
Yeah.
How was that? How discussed was that beforehand? How in the moment was that? How much consideration was given?
We had a little off with them backstage.
Yeah.
No fists, just a big row.
Yeah.
Adrock rang me. I mean, this story is old now, isn't it? Everyone probably knows. But, you know, Adrock rang me at my house the night before.
Right.
And I was like, first of all, how'd you get my number?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And we're talking about a guy who I respect. You know, I was into the Beastie Boys, so it's kind of a weird phone call to be having.
Yeah.
Because I'm reassessing what are you about?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I know what I'm about.
Yeah,
what are you about?
Yeah.
And why are you telling me what I can do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was a kind of weird, it's a very unusual sort of situation to be in, really. And I knew once I told Keith, he'll be like, where the fuck are they? Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
So, you know, it's kind of like, I had a bit more of a jovial sort of thing. I think I said to Adrock on the phone, all right, I'll play it twice for you then. And then hung up, and that was that. Whereas Keith was more angry about it, do you know what I mean? And I was just like, fuck them, you know, this is England, mate. Do you know what I mean?
We'll do what we want.
The other funny thing was that I sampled them on that Fat of the Land album. They were on the album. So that made me laugh, really, in the background, you know.
It's kind of a crazy one. Well, I mean, I'll continue on. I haven't even asked how much time we've got. Are you in any rush, or can we kind of go through? Let's go through, because I wanted to. Obviously, we will get to the new record and tours on that. But I was like, that's right. As long as I can take my time. But
totally.
So around the time it
You've been listening to Scroobius Pip's Discretion Pieces.
There you go. That was part one. As you will have heard, I got to the hour mark. Any regular listeners find it hilarious that I tend to mention when we're at the hour mark and wrap up. I don't know why. It's a fine thing to say. But yeah, you'll see that you will have heard that I was like, there's a lot more I want to talk about. Have you got a bit more time? So we went for 2 hours, essentially. So yeah, part two is up at midday. It might be up already, depending on when you're listening to this. Exciting times, guys. Let's just get on to part two. Oh, and again, if you want to join the Patreon crew to get a heads up, I mean, to be honest, I reckon if you've listened to all of this podcast in the hour or this first half, in the hour it's gone, the items have probably sold out. But me and Liam actually talk about the items or a version of the items at the end of the next podcast. So yeah, I'll see you in part two. Bye bye. Welcome. This is part two of the Distraction Pieces podcast, episode 237 with the legendary Liam Howlett. I hope you all enjoyed part one. I can tell you now, at the end of this podcast, me and Liam talk about the Prodigy's collaboration with an artist called Riker. And I've collaborated with Riker as well, as you'll hear at the end of the podcast. And me and Riker decided that for Halloween, we made essentially a He-Man toy of me previously on my birthday in August, and they sold out in no time. So we decided for Halloween to make 13 glow-in-the-dark versions. And despite the fact they normally sell for like 80 quid, 100 quid, I mean, these are ultra limited, so we could charge more. Riker generally charges a lot more. We decided it's funny to charge £66.60 because it's 666 and there's 13 of them and it's Halloween and they glow in the dark and have a little pumpkin. So instead of grabbing a ton more money off you guys, we've gone as ever on what entertains us. So yeah, they're available at speechdevelopmentrecords.com. They may have sold out, but that's again a reason to be a member of patreon.com/Scroobius Pip. It's less than £1 a month, and you get a heads up on these things. You get first refusal as such. So yeah, head over there, join that. Head to speechdevelopmentrecords.com. Me and Liam talk about him signing his record label with the guys at Red Essential /Kirkin Vinyl /The Orchid, which is where I started my label and how I run my label with those guys. So head to speechdevelopmentrecords.com for all that. We also talk in both parts, I think in this part more, about my solo album, Distraction Pieces, which pretty much happened because of Liam. So yeah, there's some good stories. I hope you all enjoy it. I'll be back at the end to tell you what is to come, essentially. All right, I'll talk to you in a bit. For now, this is part 2 of episode 237 with Liam Howlett.
This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces. This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces. This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces. This piece of fiction is the intro to Distraction Pieces. I haven't even asked how much time we've got. Are you in any rush, or can we kind of go through? Let's go through, because I wanted to. Obviously, we will get to the new record and tours on that. But I was like, that's right. As long as I can take my time. But
Totally.
So around the time it kind of you'd burnt yourselves out was around the time that the Dirtchambers dropped, and we got to see a little bit of Liam on his own, and that record was huge for me because it had the rap influence, it had everything there, and so how was that to kind of? And Dirtchambers was the name of of your studio and all that kind of thing, right?
It was basically like, it was actually a mix I did for radio. I can't remember.
It's for Annie Mac, right?
I think it was for Annie Mac. I'm pretty sure it's for Annie Mac. And it got received really well. And again, Richard was like, we should put that out. And I'm like, really? I've never really thought of myself as kind of a DJ again. I'd kind of like stopped being a DJ when I'd left this sort of hip-hop thing. And what I'd done was, when you're on the road in sort of late 90s, there's no way of writing music because there was no laptops that had the power to, be able to write. To take them and carry on writing. So it was literally like, if you're on the road, you're not in the studio. So I was out the studio for a good, couple of years, which I found pretty hard. And then when I got home, I didn't necessarily want to go in the studio. It was kind of weird. So it was like, the Dirtchamber was a good sort of way. I didn't have to think about it too much. I just thought, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll do that. And just spent like a week doing it proper old school, 2 decks, drum machine, and a 4-track, no computers, and just basically built the mix up. And I think the original version had Sgt. Pepper in it. So when we tried to clear like these 50 or 60 tracks, because I kind of like the old. Do you remember the Double D and Steinsky sort of like mixes back from the 80s? They were like real, sort of mixes of James Brown breakbeats and stuff. They were like, a mix of 5 minutes would have like 100 records in.
Yeah, it had a thickness to it. It was all overlaying and all overlapped. And
so it would have like 10 seconds of this record. And so I wanted to do something like that, really. So just a real sort of mashup of like every style I'm into that kind of represents what we're about, And so it was basically a logistical nightmare to clear it. It was, you can imagine, I mean, I didn't do it, the record company did it. But for them, but
good luck with that.
Yeah, but I was so happy with the mix because once I knew the Beatles wasn't going to happen, so I chopped that off and did a new intro. But there was a few other problems we ran into, the Pistols were like, nah, And so I was like, get me Lydon's number.
Yeah.
So I rang him.
Amazing.
And left a message, because he was living in America then, I think. I left a message on his answer machine. I didn't know whether he got it or whatever. And then literally a week later, phone rang at 3 a.m. What the fuck's that? Hello, is that Liam? He says, John. And it's great, he's just, he's like, why the fuck do you want to use this? Why should I let you use it? And I went into just telling him about the record and and I think that he just wanted to make sure it wasn't a record company thing, and it was coming from someone who respected what he's about and what he does, and just kind of had this similar conversation with Jimmy Cortive, but with the KLF song.
Yeah.
And just I found that if I'd spoken to people more, the things would get cleared, so that was actually a good way forward.
It makes
with
a
further
right?
things moving forward when I'd sample other people's records, because the sampling culture is was a massive thing, back in the early rave days, I do it much less now, because it's, I don't know, I like to create the things, and kind of make them sound like because all the best stuff's been used, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
kind of like there's only so many a cappellas out there from the old school, But I just like I just found that if I physically got on the phone to someone and spoke to them about and tried to tell them what it was about, rather than being approached by a record company going, can we license your track,
Completely.
do you know what I mean? The hands-on touch.
With me and Dan, when we sampled Radiohead on Letter from God to Man, we weren't getting any word back. And then John Kennedy had him in for a session, and he played it to him and talked to him about it. And I don't know if that influenced it, but I know that a week later they had a vote and they cleared it.
Great.
And it was that personal touch of going, look, it's not just some shit. If you see it on paper, it's easy to go, no, we don't let anyone sample us.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can go, look, it's this. It's not just here's a sample and it's ripping off your song or whatever.
You did the great record with it. You turned it into someone else. We encourage. We have a lot of people that just since the whole internet thing took off, because there was no internet when I did Fat of the Land. That happened sort of. I can't remember what year it was, but I mean, I didn't get on it until '99. It
was 98 or 99, I think. Anyway, yes, it was a good year after Fat of the Land did.
Yeah, but then I don't know how many more years until YouTube and stuff, until people could actually post up their mixes of my track. So we got quite a big sort of I don't know, we're the type of band that sort of people remix. Yeah. And I like that.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's when we stuck out the single off this album, the Need Someone track, within 2 weeks there was 20 bootlegs up there. Yeah. And I encourage that, man. I think it's good. But I think with sampling, and you've got to, if you're going to use someone else's piece of music, you've got to do something different with it. You've got to be creative with it. Do you know what I mean? Or the end product's got to give you a different feel, like what you did with that track.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's it. It's and Dirtchamber's opened my eyes up to a lot of that, of the mixing of genres, of the crossing over, and it really influenced a solo record, Distraction Pieces. It's one of the albums I sent out to the collaborators on that, and it's a weird one, because originally I was going to be making that album with just me and my mates, and then you and me talked about doing a track together, and it never happened. But that gave me the idea to hit up Danny Lona of Nine Inch Nails, and to hit up a Richard Russell and Steve Mason and people like that, and make this album that was this collaborative thing. And it's a weird one, because I was thinking back earlier, I'd genuinely forgotten about it, but the reason that came about was because a little while before that, you had asked me to try writing some lyrics, potentially for some Prodigy stuff, and I was too green at that point. I wrote Scroobius Pip lyrics. I didn't write Prodigy lyrics, but it just made me think of it then, because one of the tracks I sent over was a history of hip hop, and it pointed out
I've got it on the computer.
It pointed out the beautiful irony of sampling in hip hop pretty much started with the Ultramags. They were the first to bring in these James Brown drops and things like that. And then it was the Ultramags who were going, smack my bitch up, that you've then sampled. And it's this beautiful cycle there. It feels like a respectful cycle of here's how it's developed.
Totally. It's the use of those old records that really changed the sound of hip hop, I believe. Jungle Brothers, and Bomb Squad, Public Enemy, they were creating something that was just never done before. Just the chaos of sound, and that really influenced me. Yeah.
So how was it to take a bit of a break after all that, to kind of stop Because again, it did seem like a never-ending escalation. It got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a real bad time. I mean, the good thing about that time for me personally was I met my wife, you know, and basically, so I spent a lot of time hanging out with her, which was great. But on the band side of things, the whole thing fell apart. Yeah. Totally fell apart.
How was it personally between all of you?
Me and Keith weren't communicating. It's hard because when you're brothers, you know, the friendship gets in the way of work. It's really hard to be best friends with someone and then have like this work thing, which you've got to kind of put the friendship over there for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think that the burnout and just like, you know, just the frustration of waiting to kind of new music. When's it going to happen? I'm like, well, I just need a break, man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
just give me a minute.
Keith went off and did a solo thing, and Maxim did a solo thing, and I guess I did with that DJ album, you know. So that gave us a bit of breathing space, but it took a long time to glue it back together. And it's the old thing of like the communication just bred paranoia.
Yeah.
No communication, you know.
Yeah.
And that was really, we were kind of like partying quite a bit, and that bred more paranoia between us, you know. And I think Maxim was a mediator at that point, you know, between me and Keith.
Right, yeah.
But
and that's not an easy situation, particularly as you've started off as mates, and then you've
man.
got to live your dreams,
I
and then that's
thought,
what's destroyed it all, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought we'd break up because we're the only people who decide that.
Yeah.
You know, one of us none of us said we were leaving. It was unspoken. We just didn't talk. We literally didn't talk for like a couple of years, you know, a year and a half. And then at the same time, Richard's going, come on, we're going to do another album or what?
yeah.
West Fatland Part 2.
It's all going really well. Why have we stopped?
So poor Rich, you know, he was trying his best to kind of get me in the studio, and I was like, fuck that, man, you know, I don't want to go in the studio. And, you know, it had to be when I was ready, do you know what I mean? And then I started what would be Always Outnumbered. I think Baby's Got, I was trying to remember yesterday, I think Baby's Got a Temper as a single might have been in between, I can't quite remember the dates. But that actual single, I don't really like that record.
Right.
I mean, that's the one record I don't really care for too much. I mean, when you like the artwork better than you like the music, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
it had an aggressive
return
sonic sound.
Yeah, it was a sonic sort of picture of what the state of the band were in.
Yeah.
Lethargic, slow,
right,
and just not very exciting.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I get you.
I kind of thought, but you need those moments to kind of go, right, it's, you know, we get through that, and you know, nothing bad happened to us. We just stopped communicating, and I think that eventually, like, I decided I'd just get back in the studio and start. I wanted to write again, you know, and I just kind of, I think I wrote Always Outnumbered album.
Yeah.
I wrote that I moved out of Essex then. I was now living in London. I wrote that in Stoke Newington. Got a studio there, and then that sort of came together. But that album was odd because the guys weren't on it, and it was kind of like all through that album there was still no communication.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that must have been.
It was a strange
weird
time.
for everyone.
It was weird for everyone
because the Prodigy.
Yeah.
Keith and Maxim potentially are seeing that there's a Prodigy album, and it's like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, they could see it was getting built. It hadn't come out yet, but I mean, basically what happened was we eventually found a way to kind of get back together and communicate, and then we took the tracks we liked off of that album and turned them into live tracks, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what glued us back together, the live show, you know. And then straight away off the back of that, and I didn't want to do this, like XL wanted to do this singles album. I was like, nah, man, that's really signifies a bit of either an end or a total change or something.
Yeah.
I was at the end of my deal with XL, and I felt like I needed a change. I'm sure they did as well. And basically, like, when you've been working with people for so long, you want to kind of work with people that are excited to work with you again. It was a good sort of agreed thing that we'd sort of part company, me and XL Recordings, and I think that was a good decision really on both our parts. But we did the singles album, and the good thing that came out of that was it brought us directly back into the live thing again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, from that point onwards, was when That was the second phase. There was kind of 3 different phases of the band. That was the third phase of the band.
Yeah. Did that kind of allow you all to remind yourselves how good you are at what you do? Like, do you know what I mean? If you're standing there and you and Keith have drifted apart or whatever else, and then bang, he's there on stage lighting things up again. Yeah.
We had so much anger with us, just through our own personal shit.
Yeah.
And we kind of took it out on the stage.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it really helped, and it glued our friendships back together. Do you know what I mean? And we knew they were always there. And when we spoke about it, it was very emotional and kind of like, you know, but it was just literally like brothers. They haven't spoken in years, but they know if someone fucking does something to them, they'll be there.
They got
your back. But it's just that non-communication, and that breeds that paranoia.
Yeah,
but,
I remember coming to see you guys in Brighton. I can't remember, it was just after you kind of started to get back into the touring live. And I'll be honest, I went into that as like, I don't know how this will be. You know, it's been a while. We're all a bit older. I'm not that kid who's getting kicked out of Brixton Academy anymore. Yeah. But then as soon as the gigs started, it was exactly the same. It was that energy and that anger and that power. So is that what kind of reignited the passion to do more records, to do all of it, to keep on the road, to go, wow, look at what we are.
Yeah, exactly.
And we still are.
It kind of, like I was saying earlier, we finally found a good way of technically how to play the music live. Do you know what I mean? Kind of, and to be able to kind of flip it up at any moment and keep it really spontaneous instead of being locked into a certain live set or whatever. You know, we could change it at any particular moment.
Yeah.
And there was a few electronic bands around that time that were trying to, like people like Pendulum and stuff. You know, they were taking their shit live. You know, and. But in a way, they were trying to be a rock band. In a way. And this is 100%. No criticism on them, but they were drum and bass trying to play like a rock band. We were trying to play like a rave band, but we were kind of just angry. So we were never trying to be a rock band or never trying to be rock.
Completely. You know? And I think what's great there is what you were saying earlier about finding how it works live. Because me and Dan had that as soon as you start to get to 2,000 cap type venues, people are like, oh, you need a band. And our argument was always, we didn't write the record with a band.
Yeah.
So we didn't add a band. But I think hearing what you were saying there about adding a drummer, but making sure that bass is coming from you still, that it's being driven by you, that you found a way to go, oh, we can add a band, but not replace us with a band.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because, like, I always see, like, I don't like it when hip-hop bands kind of, or rappers kind of do that when they get to the stage where they have to have a band. Just like the Beastie Boys, I always respected that about them.
I remember seeing
20,000 crowd, the three of them dudes.
A Mixmaster Mike.
Doesn't even come into my mind. Why isn't a fucking drummer there?
Yeah, I remember seeing the Streets at one point when they added a band, and it took everything out of it because those beats were so electronic. It didn't need that. It needed to be that tinny
absolutely
sound.
Got to keep the beats, and that's why the way we use the drums live, we do use them in a different way, and it is Leo, our drummer, is a great drummer. He's phenomenal. But it's quite a different gig that for a drummer. Band, you know, because it's kind of you have to play around the beat sometimes, not
that's
mad,
you have to
play through it and play a lot of percussive stuff, and same with the guitar. It's kind of like it's not there to sound like a guitar; it's there to layer up the synth. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like it's to create this sound, you know, and basically like when that all comes together and it all works, it's really really good, you know.
And do you kind of play the master of ceremonies role there when you're putting it all together of figuring out who needs to be doing what? Because again, it's as you said, it's not a typical guitarist gig.
No.
So you almost have to play the guitarist as an instrument and play the drummer as an instrument, as well as you're playing the drum machine and all these other whatever else you play.
We strip it out, you know. So when we've done an album, like we're about to do it this week actually, like. You know, we've written the tunes, and then okay, it's kind of in my mind as we're doing it. But then, right, how are we going to play this live? Okay, and so we'll just take out that part. That'll be the guitar part. But then, if it's just guitar, it needs something else backing it. So it's kind of figuring the best way to play the songs live, really. Yeah. And some of them are easy, and some of them are more difficult. You know, and some of them you don't want a guitar on. Do you know what I mean? Or the drums have to be played in a different way so they don't interfere with the beat. You know. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's everything's kind of like worked through, really. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So how was it when you'd brought everyone back together and then Invaders I Must Die? Did that feel like it was a Prodigy album again rather than a Liam album that was...
That was the first band album I believe we'd wrote, you know, together. You know, and it's kind of, when I say together, the guys, their presence in the studio, which is valuable because, like, you know, when you're a unit and Keith's sitting there saying to me, oh, yeah, rewind it back about 30 seconds, take it back there. Yeah, that bit, man. Yeah, because he's hearing it in a different way that I'm hearing it. Do you know what I mean? And other people, like, you know, they can hear other bits in the music where they might be able to interject something. And so it's always, at the beginning I was always writing music on my own, you know.
Yeah.
But it's, that album really became sort of like a good zone with the three of us. And that's kind of how we've rolled it since.
How's the shorthand between you guys? Because I'm terrible at expressing, like Dan Lasac would be pulling his hair out because I'd be like, it's not quite right, and like, I wouldn't be able to express what's not working. Have you got a good kind of understanding of expressing that and getting it right, or are you pulling your hair out kind of going?
Because it's like, obviously, me and Keith
I can't make it rounder. I don't know what rounder means.
No, it's obviously me and Keith and Maxim, we've spoken each other's language for 20 years, so it's kind of, I understand, and I know which bits I think Keith will like, and I understand kind of how he reacts, and you know, same with Maxim. You know, it's kind of like once I'm writing a tune, I'm thinking, I think Maxim's going to buzz off this one. This is on this, and so I'll send him the first 30 seconds. I might have just written a little demo bit of it, and he's on it, and then he'll come in. But what we try to do, especially with this latest album, is take the pressure out of this kind of studio being you come into this room, you've got to write an idea. It can be very... Because you know what it's like in a studio. You shut the door and it's kind of like dead and just really kind of... It can be a shit atmosphere. So it was fine for that Invaders album because it was kind of like we'd never done it before, you know, being all together in a studio.
Yeah.
But when we hit the next album, more chaos happened, a lot of drinking, and... I think I had to change the studio because we just couldn't work in the previous one.
Right.
And the Days of My Enemy was quite a chaotic sort of writing sessions. They were really quite mad. Actually, just going back to Invaders as well, there was literally a whole, I think probably 8 tracks, nearly a whole album's worth of material that I binned because it wasn't right. It didn't feel like it was Prodigy enough in a way. Do you know what I mean? It felt too pushed.
What's the process there of deciding what works, what's not, and bringing people in for inspiration? Like we used to gig a lot with the Does It Offend You lads, and I know they kind of chatted to you at points and came and...
I know it's good with James. I mean, James is a good friend of mine, and basically I worked with James on this latest album, actually. But,
is that important to have people to kind of to bounce off, but then it's down to Liam if it's a Prodigy track. It's one thing to make tracks.
It's funny because I'd written, just skipping back to Invaders again, the actual track Invaders Must Die. Like I'd written the riffs, the melodies and stuff. And then James, I'd met James and I liked it. I think he's a great producer. He's wicked. And I said, I've got this tune. I'm kind of got to this part of it. I don't know what to do with it. I really like the melody. It's great, you know. He goes, I'll give it to me. And he basically he got his dad's bass guitar out, which is the original bass guitar which the Stranglers used on Peaches.
Damn, yeah.
Because his dad produced that album, Stranglers, and so that bass guitar is the one you hear on Invaders.
That's amazing.
So he played it on there. He goes, "Oh, you're going to love this bass line." You know, it's basically following the melody, but so when he gave it back to me, it kind of shone a light on. Oh yeah, that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
So it's quite a nice collaboration between me and James.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing to have fresh eyes on it, right? Because when you're particularly with electronic production, you put in so many layers on that you can lose some of the early ones. You can forget that riff was what was always there.
Exactly.
He's just highlighting on, you know, that's great, but because you've built something on top that you're like, oh, this melody on top is amazing. It's like, but there's this bit that's
totally
that you've forgotten about.
That's what it's like, and the good thing about it now is, like, obviously you can go back and kind of with the computers, you know, you can kind of version 130 was good, not version 200. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that it took quite a while to write that album.
Yeah.
But I think it was we did a good job of making a band album there, and again, it's kept. We'd signed a new record deal with. I'd started this label, Take Me to the Hospital Records, and it really was just. It was just
working with Cooking Vinyl.
But it wasn't a label where I was going to really sign anyone. It was just an imprint because I felt like, who the fuck are Cooking Vinyl? I was like, what bands have they got?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, they've got a few old bands you might have heard of. And I'm like, well, with respect to Martin, I'm going to let them put the record out, but it's going to be on my imprints.
Exactly. And
what
I did with speech development.
Yeah.
I went to Cooking Vinyl. I was like, cool, I love Billy Bragg. I love this. But at this point, I feel my energy is better as this is my label. Yeah. So it's kind of, I did it as an imprint. I did it through them as exactly the same outlook.
It works, man.
And they're amazing at that because they've got the setup there to facilitate that. So you can go, right, here's what I'm doing. It will be an independent record, but it will be plugged in to all the avenues it needs to be plugged into, right?
Totally. But what was interesting about going to them was someone with, I think it was my lawyer or someone had flagged really early on that Martin was someone who's really on the ball and they were a good independent, and he thought I might get the same feel from them as I did when I signed to XL. That kind of like able
Paul
to
Spragan?
Move quickly. Paul,
He hooked me up with this. So again, it would have been around. It would have been
And basically, I sent we went in there and we just said we want it set up like we'd had it before. And so they just did a great job with that album, I think. And just again, like I said, I'm not really a record company kind of guy. I just like to stick with the music and just like oversee stuff, but I never go into the label or anything. I just like to keep a distance.
So I mean, it now feels completely natural, having heard what kind of reignited everything, that you then chose to do a live DVD album, all that cunning, and make a film essentially of what the Prodigy is, and it was perfect because it did show it that it's like, no, this is current and this is now and this is exciting and energetic. It's not kind of, oh, do you remember that song from this time ago? It's like, no, look, here's what we're doing.
That came out of doing that Milton Keynes gig. I mean, basically that was, I guess, following the tradition of when Oasis did Nebworth. It was kind of, they put their stamp on it. They didn't know. They I would imagine, they were like, Nebworth, fucking hell, we're going to do that. I don't know. Maybe they were just like, we're doing it, and that's that. But it was a tall order, I thought, at the time, do you know what I mean? For 250,000 people. They pissed it, didn't they? And I mean, I know because we played it with them. We supported them, and I was amazed myself. I was thinking, "Fuck, how the fuck did they do this?"
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
does that open your eyes though? Does that make you go, "Well, anything's
but also
possible
we're not total fans of the biggest is the best. We like playing smaller venues. I mean, but it was kind of like the timing was just right. It was like you are saying you're kind of fucking back, And we went to Milton Keynes Bowl, and it's such a great venue that I didn't really understand why people haven't used it more. So that was a great day, and it was a real landmark gig for us. I mean, just the way my head is, I just was like, okay, great, just do it. It wasn't until I walked out on that stage that I realised that everyone there was there for us. I knew it was that gig, but I wasn't prepared to how emotional I'd feel.
To get that around you.
Because it's kind of like, holy shit, because it's like a bowl and it goes up. I mean, it was 65,000, but like it was 65,000 people you could see rather than just heads going off into the distance. It kind of ramped up. And so, but it was the thing that they were there to see our band, and that kind of really touched me in a way. Do you know what I mean? I thought it was great after all these years,
It's amazing to have those moments. And again, I think the it's back to that punk rock view that people will get hung up on. No, I'd rather see them in a small venue. It's like, well, but we're not going to play to 65,000 people every gig now. No. This is a special occasion. This is a one-off thing. It's a one-off. We're going to go back to doing these gigs here and there, but you shouldn't be ashamed to have pride in that. You should be able to go, this is a fucking amazing thing that we had all these people here.
And the good thing about it was we really did try and put ourselves into that whole show, like as far as like choosing getting all these different cool little areas going, different stages, and kind of like, you know, making the whole thing feel like it is event. It was an event, and we called it the Warriors Dance Festival, and we ended up doing like one in Tokyo. It was a much smaller one. One in Serbia, and it's another one somewhere. I think when we went to Australia, we took over the Future Music Festival. We had a Warriors Dance like area, so it was a festival within a festival, you know, type of thing. But it was just a good landmark gig, I think, for us.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, we do prefer playing inside.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I get
You know
that.
what I mean?
So how is it now gearing up to release a new record, to tour a lot? I'd imagine. Again, generally when we've talked in the past about podcasts or anything else, it's always, if I know that you're about to go on tour, it's like, if I hear from Liam now, I'll be waking up to a 5 a.m. email from. So other than that, it's fine. You go and do your thing, kind of. So how is that? Like, how exciting is that? After, again, from what you said, you don't do things by halves. After locking yourself away in the studio for however long to put this together, you're now committing to taking yourself away and being with the rest of the guys, with the crew, with whatever else, you know, on this run.
It's always great, but the thing is, we're always on the road, you know. So going through the album, we were still doing gigs, you know. So we've never been a band.
It never seemed to stop on this period.
I think it doesn't really work with the music because we like to keep the music gets written off the feel of the shows, you know, of that feeling you get. So what I tried to do with this album is kind of like really connect the dots and not have any gap. So, for example, do the show, I'll stay in the shittest, closest hotel. Thank you. And get me there as soon as possible. If it's 5 minutes away. I mean, the last one, my manager really took the piss because we got in the car and literally drove around the back and the hotel was in the festival. I was like, you're having a fucking laugh. And literally, it was 7 a.m. before I could even hear any music coming out of my laptop because it was right next to the stage. So that was good. But
you need a balance there. There's a point of diminishing returns there. If you're too close, it's like, all right.
But it was like, to really commit and get it done, just kind of, you know, again, like I say, when I'm doing a record, you know, anyone who thinks they can go into the same studio, act the same, do the same, and think they're going to come out with something different it don't work for me. Do you know what I mean? It's like you've got to change aspects of the way you work. And for this record, you know, I just worked everywhere. I didn't stick to a studio. I worked everywhere. I mean, I worked at home, you know, mainly on the road. We recorded lots of vocals on this album on the road, in hotel rooms, and I liked the kind of freeness of it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, we weren't under pressure with this room, this studio, you know, and it's kind of, I spent a lot of time in here, but it was more getting the sonics right rather than the recording, you know. Yeah.
Do you think the confidence to change came from that success early on of changing, from the experience to Jilted? Because again, a lot of bands will go, no, this is our sound, though. This is how we sound. I think, and you guys have always been comfortable in going, no, our sound is completely different now. Honestly, it'll all work at a gig. Like, trust me, it'll all sit together and it'll work, and we'll make it. Just take our word on that. But
that's funny because I do think it does sound the same.
Right?
That's my view on it, because I think that as I roll through and listen to the different albums, you know, the fundamental foundation of what the Prodigy is about hasn't really changed. You know, but I think I think with this latest album, we've carved out a sound, you know, and people know us for this type of music, you know. But I think that I definitely looked back towards the first album a bit with this record, not to make it retro, but just to kind of not be afraid to tap into the rave sound, and bring it to the more ferocious kind of drums and bass, what we're doing now, and kind of like, because I think the rave, when people talk about rave music, they always sort of think about sort of the happier side of it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like we just wanted to present what we originally knew about it, which was the kind of East London pirate radio sound. Do you know what I mean? That kind of raucous, raw, and that was kind of a bit of an inspiration with this, you know.
And rough as well. Again, there's a misremembering at times of how rough a lot of the rave set. Again, I wasn't particularly part of it, but I heard a lot about it. That particularly, again, the perception of Essex these days is your only way is Essex, stuff like that. That's not the Essex that I grew up in. Essex is a rough It's like you can get yourself in some trouble.
I don't know when that happened.
Yeah,
I'd left Essex by that point, and it literally was a different place when all that kicked off. I mean,
again, the Essex I know, you've got to have a bit about you and
Totally.
keep your eyes open and stuff like
Totally,
that. And that's what is forgotten about the rave scene, that they were illegal raves.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that everyone there is going to be lovely. It wasn't Woodstock. Do you know what I mean? There was a positive vibe, everyone together.
It got worse
also,
and worse, for sure.
It's risky, yeah.
At the beginning, it was because I stepped into it about 1989, the end of I just caught the summer and then of 89, and then all through 90. But towards the end of 90, it got a bit too
Quickly,
heavy.
right?
It got real heavy, and yeah, it's like anything, I guess, where money's involved, people want their cut, But
yeah, of course.
That always has a bit of danger about it. That kind of was exciting at the same time.
Yeah, that's what draws you in initially.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, you want to be reminded of that danger because it's a good feeling, I think.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. With that, we don't want a safety net on us all the time.
I couldn't agree more.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I was literally saying to my girlfriend the other day that if I ever lived in London, I'd rather live in South London because that's where all my family from than in West London, because I'd rather feel as if someone might stab me than feel as if someone's going to tap me on the shoulder and ask me to leave. Because I feel out of place there. I feel like I'm in the wrong one. And again, she couldn't relate to that at all. But I was like, I don't know, I like that. Growing up in Essex and South London, that slight edge, again, just having to be aware of yourself. I don't think that's always a bad thing. Because it's
not a bad thing.
It keeps you.
It totally, yeah. I mean,
top of it.
It grounds you for sure.
So, I mean, I'll start to wrap things up now. Touring, burying yourself in studio. You spoke that in the gap from all of that, you met your missus and you started a family.
Yeah.
How does that all balance? How do you hold that together?
It's chaos, but it's great. It's kind of the way it works,
Yeah.
I'm lucky, my missus is in the business, if you like, I hate that word, but she's in her own band, so we've got a really great understanding of how, we've got good support for each other. Do you know what I mean? All that time that I was talking about when I first met my wife, she was there for me and she's always been there for me and I'm there for her. So it's kind of like, it's just, I don't know, you feel lucky to be called dad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, but I tell you what though, people always talk about the mellowing.
Yeah.
I think I went the other way.
Right.
Everything was more important, more intense.
Right,
It
yeah.
gave it
You've
more of
got
a
something
purpose.
to fight for.
Yeah, man. I didn't feel any mellowing coming on at all. I think I've probably got more intense and just more into what I do. Things become more valuable when you've got a family.
Yeah.
Every little thing becomes
more
more
driven
valuable.
and more.
Yeah,
it all means something.
I cared less about materialistic things. During growing up in Essex, when you first earn a bit of cash, I want to buy that car.
Yeah,
I want
of course.
to buy that Rolex or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. You get real. I don't know. It strips you down to kind of like just the the good shit. I think.
I always remember I was at a festival with a Billy Bragg, who again idol of mine because of Essex, because of hearing someone singing in my own accent and stuff like that. And I was there, and his kid was there, and his kid was just embarrassing dad, and it made me realise how important that is, because once you've had a kid, I guess I've not got any myself, but you can't worry about being cool.
No.
Because you're going to be an embarrassing dad at some point. They're going to think you're a Wally. They're going to think this or that at some point.
Yeah.
So it does make you.
He's got a long way to go yet, though.
Yeah, it does make you drop some of them silly things that you hold on to try and be cool, to try and be this, to worry about other people's perceptions. You can just be you and go into it, right?
Well, do you know what I mean? You got to set an example, I think.
Yeah.
But
right.
yeah, it is great. I mean, basically, like, I just love like sitting there and I'll hear like the other day I heard like a Madness record that I knew was either a B-side or like off the first album, and Ace was playing, and I was like, "Oi, what? Do you like that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's great, Dad." I'm like, "How do you know about it?" So shouting in his bedroom, and it's like, I just find it really interesting how he accesses music. I mean, obviously it's been happening for a few years now, but I think that like I think music like that's why the live side of things is really important, because it's the direct, pure route to the people. Standing on stage playing to people. It's why it's such a big part of the band. Whereas what reminded me of like what my son was doing was accessing music through games or it being the soundtrack of a film or something, you know, but not a first thing, you know, of listening to the radio like we used to do.
Yeah, completely.
Of course, you know, we don't want to live in a dinosaur age, but I just think that if someone had a button, they turned music off, maybe it might remind people how important it is. Like if it suddenly went from the soundtracks and it suddenly went from backing up games, you know, people might respect it a bit more.
It's become such a disposable thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you're saying there about the generational thing. And you mentioned right at the start gigging with Green Day or being at a festival with Green Day. And Green Day are one that stand out to me as, when I was at school, they were one of the most important bands for me. There's kids at school now who they're one of the most important bands for. And whilst I might not be into their current stuff or whatever else, it's that amazing thing to be able to continue to be that band that means the world to these young kids when they're finding music, when they're finding what they're into.
Yeah.
And the Prodigy are an example of that as well. That,
thanks, man.
You know, when I came to see you guys last, it wasn't all us older boys. It was a range. It was a variation. There was people of all ages there.
Yeah, we do. I think that we first noticed that when we released the singles album and then going into Invaders, we suddenly were like, shit, it's a young audience into us now.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that is to do with the type of music it is as well. I think this music can't die. You know, it just finds a way of evolving into something else. You know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just, every now and then it will get a bit rinsed out, and then another sound will happen. You know, it's kind of, it all kind of links back to us in some weird way.
Yeah.
You know,
completely.
in the way of like historically.
Yeah.
So I think kids kind of see that, you know, in a way.
Yeah.
You know,
I get
you know
that.
what I mean?
Well, I'll round things up by talking about. I can see a Biggie bust there, which is from the man Riker.
Yeah, he's from the man Riker. Yeah.
I've done 2 toy collaborations with him now. I love him, and I was so excited when he was doing one with you boys.
Yeah.
And how was that? So for people who don't know, Riker is an artist who makes these amazing kind of art toys and all sorts of things. I like that, and he came and did a Prodigy one.
Well, I saw yours and I was jealous, and I thought, man, that's fucking cool. That is. No, he's a great guy, Riker. I mean, I bought quite a number of his pieces off of him.
Yeah, he's an amazing artist.
What else have we got in here? I've got I think Slave to the Rhythm somewhere.
Yeah.
And a few other pieces at home. And so I was aware of him for a while, you know, and then when I saw the stuff you did, and we just kind of, it's like any little bits of kind of merchandise. You kind of, it amuses you that you could kind of do these things. Yeah, you know, why would I draw on a figure of myself? Do you know what I mean? But it's like, it was a laugh doing it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, you know,
that's exactly it.
It was just fun, you know, kind of limited edition thing. But Riker, I've got a lot of respect for him. You know, he's a great guy, you know.
Oh, we're doing. It's weird because I was talking to him yesterday, and we did this He-Man's size one. We had Masters of the Spoken Verse.
Yeah.
And he just hit me up saying, "Did I ever tell you I made some glow in the dark ones?" I was like, "No, you didn't really tell me that." And he was like, "Do you want to release them?" I was like, "Well, I'm seeing Liam tomorrow, and the Liam podcast is coming out on Halloween. Let's release a few limited glow in the dark ones. I'll make sure we send one out to you.
Yeah.
Let's release a few limited glow in the dark ones."
He did one of me, glow in the dark.
It's amazing.
I've got it at home in the cupboard, and
I love it when he does that. Like, you agree a collaboration, and then I go, also, again, he's like on this He-Man one. He was like, "I made a one for each of us that's covered in blood." I'm like, wicked. It's not available for anyone else to buy, but it's like, all right, mate, cool.
I mean, look around me in here, man. I mean, I'm still a kid, aren't I? Look,
I love it.
As
soon as I walked in, there's stuff that I've looked at online myself or I own myself. I love it. There's good collections. I went through a stage when I liked the internet, when I realised I could buy all the old toys I had when I was a kid. I was like, are you kidding me? I could sit here for a week just on my computer buying all my old toys. Mate, I've paid too much of that.
Pay through the roof for them. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, you know.
Well, I'll wrap things up, but speaking of the internet, you normally end by saying, where can people follow you? Before I ask that, what do you think of it all? of social media, of the way it's all gone? Because your Instagram, the Prodigy Instagram, it's done really well. It's not over. It does what it does. It's not feeling like it's just here for marketing, but equally, it's not kind of here's our breakfast.
I'm not a tweeter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I think when you take pictures of stuff, it is the band's Instagram.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do mainly take the pictures on it, but I kind of like that. You know, it's kind of a bit of weirdness thrown in as well.
Yeah.
And we don't want it to be sort of industry or business related too much. Do you know what I mean?
Completely.
It's an insight of what the three of us are into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't like social media personally because for me, I'm too busy for it. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather be looking at a drum machine than looking at my phone to see how many messages I've got. I just use the phone so I could speak to my family and my friends, and that's it. I don't have a Facebook. I don't do anything. I just use the Instagram to take pictures of the band and to inform people of like what we're into and what movements we're making. I don't know if that's me saying I'm rebelling against it. I just haven't got the time for it.
Yeah,
I'd rather be outside, walking about, or looking at something in real life, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's perfect. So
I'm into movies. I mean, I don't really watch TV a great deal. What
kind of movies are you into?
Everything, but I particularly like, I love horror genre, you know, and old school horror.
Yeah. Have you seen a film called Caliber?
I haven't, no.
It's on Netflix. I had the director on yesterday. So it'll be coming out after this, but it's amazing. It's more a thriller, but his shorts were all horrors.
Right.
And it's on Netflix, and it's just about two guys essentially in a small village in Scotland.
Yeah.
It gets Stephen King tweeted about it and compared it to Wicker Man.
Great.
So again, you suffer a bit from that because it's like, well, it's not Wicker Man. It's like, no, of course it's not Wicker Man. It's its own thing. But it's kind of exciting how there's so much freedom. I have love-hate with all the digital thing because I love the cinema.
Yeah.
But I'm also aware that...
You still go?
Yeah, all the time.
Cinema.
Constantly.
I love
it.
cinema.
I love empty cinemas, go on my own.
That doesn't like going. I like going to the cinema.
Yeah.
It's something, I don't know, analogue about it.
School, you know? It's real. It's just you can't be distracted by the cup on the side in your living room or whatever else. You know what I mean? You are just... It's darkness. Exactly. It's darkness. You're fully immersed in it.
Right, yeah.
But equally... because of the way cinema has gone, I'm aware that there's a lot of really good films that wouldn't get made if it wasn't for Netflix, for Amazon, for these streaming services. So it's a weird a weird balance there because I'm appreciative of it, but still, if something comes out only on Netflix, I'm like, just put it on in one cinema just so I can go and watch it there. I'd rather just go and sit there and watch it.
Yeah, totally. Especially coming out of the studio all the time, you know, sort of that sort of intense work schedule.
Yeah.
There's certain programs that I just have as like a bit of a security blanket.
Yeah.
You know, things like Curb Your Enthusiasm. That is Larry is my hero.
Yeah, he's gold.
I've got to send him props, you know.
Yeah.
So that will be like a good thing to have on my computer if I'm in dark Russia.
I can't
I'm thinking I've got fucking 2 weeks of staying here. At least I've got Larry.
I can't wait for one of your gigs where you forgot to close it all down properly, and as it boots up, you just get ding, 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 just to a stadium of Prodigy fans. Oh, sorry, hang on. Here's where we're going.
Yeah.
So is that a key then? Having those things that allow you to switch off because of how intensely you live your work life, your touring life?
Yeah, I don't ever switch off. That's the thing. I've realised that it's always on somewhere. It's really difficult. I mean, I do when I go on holiday. I don't take anything with me, you know.
Yeah.
So that's wise, I think.
Yeah.
And that's really the only time. I mean, it's really important to be able to do it. But once you're in it, and you can't switch off, you know.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
I think you think you can, but it's always lurking in the background. Someone's always got a question. Oh, did you approve the sleeve for this, or did you? You know? But it's fine, man. You know, it's the way it's been, and it's fine. I haven't got a problem with it. You know.
Yeah. It's a fascinating one. When you are your job, there's no. I figured it out a few years back. The reason I don't, again, it's different if you've got a family. But the reason I don't enjoy holidays that much is you need a boss to be on holiday from. I can't get away from me. I'm always there. So it's that kind of, I go on holiday and I'm still thinking about work and I'm still doing some writing or whatever else. So
You're right. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for all the time you've given. You've gone above and beyond here, and No Tourist is out on November 2nd.
Yeah.
And then what's the kind of the touring schedule? Constant, right?
Yeah, well, basically, like, we always know what we're going to do 6 months in advance, you know. And next year, there's also going to be something else we're going to be putting out.
Wicked.
That's all I can say about that.
All right, that's good. That's all I need to know.
So, yeah, man, I'm going to play you a couple of tracks in a minute, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stop there and we'll get on with that. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Scroobius Pip's Discretion Pieces.
There we go. That was part 2. I hope you enjoyed both parts. As I mentioned in part 1, if you're new to this podcast, again, a lot of new people on Spotify, Acast, iTunes, all these places. If you're new to it, then have a browse through the back catalogue. We've got all sorts of people from Zane Lowe to DJ Yoda to Simon Pegg. I'm scrolling through there in front of me. Stephen Graham, Kathy Burke, Limmy was great. Edith Bowman was an amazing episode. Michaela Cole, who's coming back soon. Lauren Laverne. I mentioned Goldie, right, because that was a relevant one. Huey Morgan, another great one. Aisling B, who was recently fantastic on the Films to be Buried with podcast, absolutely hilarious. Johnny Lee Miller, you know, a fellow short-haired bleach blonde, along with Liam. Yeah, just tons of good people. Also had Nick Hawks on, who is Liam's manager, who sorted all this out and who originally signed the Prodigy. So that could be a good one to go and listen to if you're a Prodigy fan. Anyway, I'll wrap things up. I told you I'll let you know some of the upcoming guests because I feel I've been holding off. Next week is the return of Michaela Cole. I'm very excited about that. The week after that, I've got Michael Venom Page, MVP, on the podcast. So that's a great one. Then, I've been holding off on announcing this because it's another legend, but I'll let you know. Then we've got John Cooper Clarke. So we're ending this year as strongly as we've maintained that strength all year, to be completely honest. So thank you for tuning in. I'll see you all next week as Michaela Cole returns for a fantastic chat about all the stuff that she's done since I last had her on, man. She's been in a full episode of Black Mirror. She's been in Star Wars. She's been in Black Earth Rising, which has blown me away. Been So Long is a fantastic new film of hers on Netflix. We'll talk about all this next week. Chill out, guys. I'll see you in a bit. Ta-ta.